Okay, so welcome everybody to the Masterclass series of Being Future Ready. And my name is Purobi Mitra. I'm from Vadhvani Institute of Technology and Policy. And from IMB and WITP, we are proud to host this event for all of you. This is the second Masterclass in the series of Being Future Ready. And we welcome you to today's Masterclass, which is on the Architecting Population Scale Solutions by none other than Dr. Pramod Varma himself. So before we actually go ahead and introduce our guest speaker, which I'm sure everybody is excited to meet and hear, quickly running us all through the agenda. We obviously would like to quickly introduce IIMB as well as WITP. We'd also be talking about, is there a certificate to be earned through these masterclass series that we attend? And of course, the introduction and reaching towards commencement of the masterclass. One of the things that we'd like to share as hygiene is that all of us can use the chat option for our questions. Between us administratively, we will be taking a look at the questions. And of course, Dr. Pramod Varma himself will have access to the chat in case he wishes to take any question as per his discretion. We will open the Q&A session in the last 15 minutes after about 30 to maximum 40 minutes of his talk. And then we'll, of course, commence with the Q&A session. For those of us who are taking questions, we may just well make you panelists so that you can interact with Dr. Varma, and also we'll request you as you become panelists, do switch on the camera. So on that note, allow me to share a quick roundup. Of course, I'm sure all of us would be aware that from IIMB, we are partnered with the Center for Software and Information Technology Management, CSITM, and from WITP, we are directly working with the Indian government and policy makers. And the idea is to respond to making India a global leader. Making India a global leader, especially when it requires to leverage all the latest technologies for government operations, including policy and programs. We do have three functions within WITP, which is Academy, where we are not only training, but also working towards skilling these policymakers and bureaucrats in the awareness of emerging technology and implementing these technologies through projects and POCs. We also have a dedicated projects team that does that. And we also have a tech-centered policy team that focuses on data sharing, data privacy, and EV battery swapping related papers. So we do work directly with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. While we are talking about what we do, in association with IIMB, as we have launched this series, we also encourage that we all look forward for the up and coming masterclass series that will be held in each month till March. And of course, with the minimum eligibility of having attended 3 masterclasses, IIMB and WITP together will be awarding a certificate to all of us who have managed to clear attending these 3 masterclasses, or even all 6. At this point, I will take no more time and I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Pramod Varma, a little bit about him before I give the stage to him. He is known, and I'm sure all of us would be aware, he is the Chief Architect of Aadhaar, India's largest identity program, where we are covering more than 1.3 billion people. He's also the chief architect for various India stack layers, such as e-sign, digital locker, UPI, data empowerment and protection architecture. He is also working at population scale, which is also working at a population scale in India. And also, Dr. Varma plays an integral role in architecting India's digital health infrastructure, ABDM, vaccination and immunization infrastructure, which is COVIN and DIVOC, and Unified Health Interface, which is the UHI. He is also an author and for the open source Beacon protocol. And more importantly, he's also an advisor to the Unique Identification Authority of India, UIDAI. Also, he's worked closely with GSTN, NPCI, National Health Authority, and also with SEBI. Not to also forget that he does hold a doctorate in computer science along with the master's in applied mathematics. When it comes, of course, I'm sure you can see when it comes to the interest scales, his, of course, interest lies in internet scale distributed architectures and intelligent systems. We are excited to have Dr. Pramod Varma today and specifically, share his point of view and throw some light on architecting population scale solutions. So welcome, Dr. Varma, and over to you.
Thank you, Purvi. It's quite boring to actually read out this stuff. And, I was hoping that you're not going to read out. Nobody cares. And it's all on the LinkedIn. So people should just go read. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. You've been kind. Let me share the deck and we can get started. Let me know when it's on a slideshow.
Yes, we can see. We can see now.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here this morning. And I'm hoping to take you through quite rapidly because I think it would be wonderful to have some conversations because much of this is actually in the public domain. And many of you, especially if you are from, the ecosystem itself, implementation startup ecosystem, or if you are from the academic circles, very high chance you have studied at least few of this very, very well. So I don't want to bore you with everything you already know. So I'm hoping maybe I'll take about 30 minutes or so to go through. But there are some very key, there are some hypotheses and there's some essence of the method to this madness, India's digital infrastructure. They are not to be seen as bunch of independent stuff that we are doing. They are extremely connected and extremely connected towards a single goal of formalization. Okay, so it's very, very important that you get the big picture, and that allows you to fit the pieces of the puzzle in your mind very well. And I'm hoping that I'll achieve. Individually, each of them, UPI and Aadhaar, it's enough being written about, and you can obviously go and study more. And I hope you'll have some conversations at the end of the day. Again, quickly, all of you know, India is extremely diverse, and we just going to be, latest population discussion says we are going to overtake China next year. So large population, very diverse, very aspirational and very young. And, sort of India 2, India 3, India 1, we use these words, but there is no hard definition of any of this. But really it means that the essence of this is that one single solution doesn't fit and one approach doesn't fit to the entire population. So we need to layer it and allow blooming of many, many solutions as we do things. And that's one of the things I need to keep in mind. This is a lot of times it's surprising to people that even as late as 2008, when even Android was launched, iPhone was launched, Android was launched, even then we had sub 20% bank account penetration, and that's not obvious because most of you would have seen your parents or even that generation having bank account. A lot of us are very privileged in that sense, right? And we belong to the 20%, frankly. And this was a holy grail, and India really wanted to solve financial inclusion. And the first step towards financial inclusion is access. And access takes us towards habits, and habits takes us towards outcomes. Access itself is not, not there. It makes no sense for them to create financial inclusion habits or savings or any of that habit, right? At the same time, in 2008, we were also spending, I think, 2.5% of GDP, roughly about 18% of the budget, 50 billion US dollars at that time, on direct subsidy. And the direct subsidy regime was so high that once Rajiv Gandhi made the statement that, less than 10% actually reaches the poor. But of course, we improved through 90s and 2000, we improved much through digitization and some better tracking and so on. But even though the large diversion and leakages existed in cooking gas program, food program, fertilizer program, adding up quite a lot of amount to the exchequer, right? So it needed to be addressed as well. How do you efficiently deliver subsidy schemes to the intended people with efficiency, traceability, and so on, without cutting the middleman who is sort of stealing? By the way, if you fast forward, this is a report published by Bureau of International Settlements, Central Bank of Central Banks in Basel. This report came out of BIS in Basel in 2020 December. That says India would have taken 46 years. 2011, we were roughly about 20% bank account opening here at the bottom left. We would have taken 46 years to get to 80% bank account opening if we did nothing unusual. If we did our regular things and keep pushing for a bank account opening, we would have taken about 4.5 decades to get to 80-85% banking penetration, right? But their study shows that we took flat 6 years. And that's crazy. And that's a compression of 4 decades of possible development delays, development cycle delay. This non-linearity completely surprised observers, right? BIS who are observing how is India doing financial inclusion. It very much surprised them that this exponential or non-linear solutioning happened in India by compressing development cycles. And this is a study publicly published by BIS. So it's amazing what India managed to achieve in 6 years, what we otherwise would have taken 40 plus years. During the same time, by 2020, we were already doing out of the 50 billion subsidies I talked about earlier, about 310 plus federal or the central benefit schemes and 600 plus. There are about 1,000 total state schemes were all converted to direct subsidy. What does it mean? That means all these programs now send money directly to the people's bank account instead of money moving through the supply chain with middlemen and delays and stealing and everything else that's going on. We dramatically shifted the paradigm. We reimagined the way benefits transfer could be done in the last 10 years and shifted the entire narrative. And this is a very politically attractive aspect because politicians now can actually claim that we gave you the money in your bank account, right? So it was sort of wonderfully incentive aligned, except for the people who were, benefiting from the bad system. Other than them, most people, recipients, political masters, bureaucrats, everybody generally like the leadership, bureaucrats for sure, like the idea that this can be done in India. In India is the only country that has 650 million people who can actually receive money instantly on their identity number. And it's very powerful, right? It doesn't matter where you bank. I can send money on your Aadhaar number. It's an extremely powerful. That means you become financially addressable, quite like your phone number become, communication address. Aadhaar also became a financial address for you to reach money, irrespective of where you live, who you bank with, you can still receive the money. And this allows a lot of schemes, pension, cooking gas, everything to be completely transformed. And it's amazing. And the savings, as of last year, we did 80 billion US dollars on this pipe. And the savings of $28 billion is just on central schemes, federal schemes, okay? The state scheme savings are not even counted. So this is, ROI, it's totally worth. So we compress the development cycle. 6 years we gave, 600 million plus people bank account through Jan Dhan program and Aadhaar KYC and everything else. And we move money directly to so many people and save $28 billion out of this, of leakages. It's just a finance minister's dream, right? To get this right. And people's dream and politicians' dream. And so we sort of manage the non-linear transformation quite well. Also, what happened then? This is important. When you lay a digital infrastructure, like a payment infrastructure and an identity infrastructure, it allows the country to be resilient to unknowns. And this is exactly what happened when COVID hit. We moved 4.5 billion US dollars to 160 million people on the same money rail during COVID lockdown. And these numbers are all published. They're all there in DVD files and in various sites. So you can look at it. These are amazingly wonderful leveraging the infrastructure to deal with countries' resilience when something like a tsunami, whether it's physical tsunami or a COVID-like tsunami hits us, very unknown hit us. And this has been again caught the eye of the world, saying, and US by the time, the same time when we were doing this, US was actually sending checks. So some of you know who have friends and relatives there, they were getting checks in post, US post, right? And we are the only point, so the money movement is almost negligible cost for us, and we can move to 1 billion people. That's like extremely powerful infrastructure to be there. And this is the real essence. I think India, if you look back, this transformation did not come because one team sat together, built a solution or a portal or an app. It meant systematically laying digital highways, digital infrastructure, enabling ecosystem to adopt and leverage both private and government ecosystem to adopt and leverage that digital infrastructure like a highway, right? Somebody has to, the highway only opens up access and opportunities, but someone has to leverage it. Someone has to say, yeah, now it gives me more opportunity to move my transport trucks, or supply chain gets better and efficient and so on. Somebody has to really leverage the infrastructure to their benefit. So this is the power India, that's a magic combination India has shown very well, that we can indeed create digital highways or digital infrastructure. On top of it, non-linear transformation can happen when ecosystem learns to leverage these building blocks towards their purpose, whether to deliver bank accounts, to deliver savings products, or to deliver lending, or to deliver government benefits. Doesn't matter what the solution ought to be. Or for education or healthcare. Today, we are starting to use the same infrastructure for under ABDM for healthcare, for example. And this is, again, I don't bore you with this. You know the numbers. Aadhaar is 1.34 billion people now. We are 650 million people. And good part about this, and again, I think what is eye-opener here is not the supply side number that we reached 1.34 billion people. Every month, roughly about 1.5 billion Aadhaar authentications happen in the system. Mostly it's not you and I. We don't do much of Aadhaar authentication because we have enough other mechanisms to access the formal system. 1.5 billion authentication. These are not paper-based authentication. So when somebody shows an Aadhaar card at airport or a railway station, that number is never counted because it's completely offline, decentralized, right? Usage. It's never counted. These are actual online authentication, 1.5 billion every month. That actually tells you how much on the ground it's actually leveraged. And Aadhaar was so simple that it allowed to scale. Literally 2 APIs, application programming interfaces, on top of Aadhaar. And the core of Aadhaar never changed. From the 2009 strategy paper we published, it remains same. All it does is identity, and all it does is identity verification, and all it captures is 4 attributes: name, date of birth, gender, address, right? And a mobile number, email on for communication purposes. Nothing more and nothing less. It is so simple that something like that could scale to 1 billion people. Anything complex would have fallen apart. And this is another learning. I always tell anything population scale, if you want to imagine, it has to be extremely simple and it has to be layered in many, many layers and cannot be done by one entity, cannot be done as a monolith complex project because that's a disaster waiting to happen. Aadhaar were doing 2 million enrollments, and people again asked how large the team was and so on. Aadhaar team was about 150 people total. Tech team was about 20 people, and tech architecture and design people was about literally 3 people. So think about it. It's a really small team that managed to do 2 million people were standing in line across the country every day through the drive, enrolling themselves, and we were processing 2 million, roughly 1.5 to 2 million every day. And the team was 150 total people, 20 people in tech, and 3-4 people in the tech design architecture team, right? Our ability, it came again from wonderful use of technology to be able to automate and enforce processes and policies. But even more important, Aadhaar, including the operations, was heavily ecosystem driven. We leverage the ecosystem to, together to succeed. And it is not that we set up our own offices and controls and everything else. We would have taken 10 years just to set up offices, right? It was really smartly done. And this is why the cost of Aadhaar is $1 per person. That's never been done that way, right? US was about $100+ UK was about 150 pounds, the estimate of ID. And we were doing $1. I mean, really frugal at scale. And then we build payment infrastructure. And again, the picture on the left is extremely important. When we build payment infrastructure, we did not look at infrastructure. It's about the payment rail. It's not about the payment app. It's not about the payment mobile app or a smartphone app or a feature phone app or a merchant app or a vegetable vendor app. There are many innovators who are building this innovation on the edges. What is that pipe? Payment pipe. So UPI was actually a pipe that allowed any to any account to any account, any currency to any currency, any device to any device, any bank to any bank, or any wallet, any stored value for that matter. We could move money instantly, guaranteed settlement, and trusted network. That was the power of UPI protocol, literally 2-page of protocol spec, right? Now it allows feature phone users, smartphone users, of course, all of us use UPI, and no phone users. The same UPI protocol is also used for biometric-based, Aadhaar-based payment today. So when somebody does biometric-based remittance to their wife sitting in their village, behind the scene it uses UPI protocol, same spec. It's like GSM. Even if you talk phone from Airtel to Vodafone to AT&T across the world or whatever, right? We all use GSM protocol. So think of UPI as a protocol. And of course, the success of UPI, I don't need to repeat it. Everybody talks about it. And last year, of course, we overtook China plus UK plus US, all put together, real-time money transfer, now transaction. This year, we are going to blow past like crazy. And the real, again, what is written in white is very key. It is a unifying infrastructure, extremely minimalistic, generalized, minimalistic, generalized infrastructure that unifies. It's not a solution. It's not an app. It doesn't have an opinionated view that it has to be PIN-based authentication. UPI has no affinity to actual PIN entry. That's why we can do biometric authentication. Now you can do voice-based authentication today on IVR, right? Anything can be done today as a layer of innovation on top of UPI. So UPI was minimalistic, interoperable, unifying protocol. Very, very, very powerfully constructed and generalized enough, which is why we are able to go to Singapore or UAE, or now France is adopting UPI, and 25 other countries are in discussions and so on, right? The power of that is because it was done truly like GSM or SMTP. People who are familiar with this protocol, right? And of course, a large ecosystem playing in it. And then we did data empowerment, right? In data empowerment, the essence of data and credentialing is to create high trust and low cost. And a lot of academicians, a lot of academic circles, many of you may be from that, when someone joins, IIM or any of these cases, the ability to verify their academic certificates and credentials and work credentials are almost pretty bad, okay, for us. It is paper-based, some gazette notified with some seal. It sort of makes no sense in 2022 to believe that paper is not fake. This is why offer letters, certificates are all created in the fake world. India's DigiLocker was the initiative that started that drive, and now we are trying to do DigiLocker 2.0. But along with that, we also said not only credentials, we also need to get data back to you. So if you participate in a financial transaction or a mobility transaction with Uber or Amazon payment supply, your product buying transaction or an employee-employer transaction, you are transacting during your day with many systems, and you leave behind digital footprints in all those systems. And under the draft data protection bill, now it's repeat, hopefully it will come back. It's important that we need to have both privacy and data protection bill. And when that comes up, one of the things is going to be like GDPR, we are going to give the power of accessing that data back to the people. But unlike GDPR, we are also laying a digital infrastructure to complement the legal infrastructure. Because just having law, especially in India, where enforcing law and following law is hard, and at our population scale, and no use sending everything to court because courts are, they're also clogged there. So I think it is important that India does a techno-legal approach to solving our societal challenges. And this is data and credentialing is important. It fundamentally shifts the cost structures of provisioning, whether it's admission, whether it's employment, whether it is job search, whether it is buying, selling, whether it's a bank loan, everything requires paperwork. Paperwork is untrustable. So fundamentally what we are shifting here is to create machine readable, digitally signed documents that comes out, whether it's certificate, which are credentials in nature, or whether it's actually data streams like bank statement in nature. No need, no use taking an Excel sheet or bank statement and going to saying that my bank statement is not accurate. Nobody trusts it. You could have manipulated it. So it is important that the high trust law cost is enforced, and that opens up a slew of potentially sachetized offerings, right, on top of that. And India is the only country that is actually doing this. And our DEPA, it's called DEPA, Data Empowerment and Protection Architecture. It's fundamentally a consent manager in the middle who can't see the data, who can't see or store the data, but allows you to control the data flows, and as an individual, control the data flows from a data provider where your data is there. It could be a bank, it could be a lender, it could be an employer, it could be a supply chain platform, doesn't matter where your data lies. A copy of the data in a digitally signed machine readable format will move real time, end-to-end encrypted. All the specifications are out there in the open source file. If you are a techie, you want to look at it, and so on. And completely user controlled and consent managed. And there's under the IT Act, MeitY has published a machine readable consent artifact as well. Why is machine readable consent? Because our imagination of consent is an 8-point font scrolling through some 3 pages which nobody reads. And we all say quickly screen, say, I agree, right? That's like a really crazy way of consenting, because nobody is really consenting. Nobody is really reading what it is and hoping that it's okay. We need to convert the consent itself to be explainable and machine readable and maybe even voice enabled, multilingual, and so on. It's important that make it explainability is very key, and non-repudiability of the consent itself is very key. That's why MeitY has published a consent artifact, machine readable consent artifact, and so on, which is actually used. So one of the things, first data network that actually gone alive, and you probably heard this word, account aggregator. Account aggregator network is live today in India, and it is between all financial regulators like RBI, SEBI, PFRDA, and IRDA, insurance regulator, and now tax, GST, and tax issuers are also, tax collection agencies are also joining, the tax platforms are also joining it. So your financial data lying in this left side boxes, now you can sign up to any consent manager. There are three, four consent managers today, what's called account aggregator. They are called they're consent managers in one sense, their name is account aggregator. If you can get any of the account aggregators, there are few of them RBI has, or the FSDC has approved, and you can go download one of them. and they become your consent manager to be able to actually provide the consent, request the data, and move end-to-end encrypted data. You can also get a copy if you want a copy of your data directly in your, Google Drive or your digital wallet in the future. You can actually download because the copy is your data. Think of this moving from physical statements to downloading Excel sheet or PDF to machine readable and digitally signed. So we are moving towards a machine readable, digitally signed statement. Pretty much that is what's happening. Okay, what is key here is really to again fundamentally formalize the economy. When we formalize the economy, the large SMEs who do not, lending is a classic use case that only large people get, big businessmen get large amount of money, and almost SMEs don't get loans at all because it's very difficult to provision it, very difficult to trust the data, very difficult to collect the data, and very difficult. The cost of provisioning, cost of verification outweighs the interest I can collect from. So it is business-wise unviable to do it, which is what we are shifting. So low cost, high trust is an essence for making sure sachetized loans are actually available. Instead of 10,000 crore, you should be making available 50,000 rupees, 100,000 rupees, and so on. So, otherwise we will never meet the needs of financial. And that allows people to take control of their footprints, consent it, get business first credit, grow the business, hopefully pay taxes, and then grow more. The what's called a virtuous cycle. This virtuous cycle has to kick in. And today it's live, by the way. 1 billion accounts are actually ready to be attached, and there is lakhs of consent requests going every day. And many of you have not yet started. This is like 2017 UPI, early days, okay, of account acquisition. You will see as big or bigger than UPI. The impact of real-time, machine-readable, digitally signed data in my control, in users' control, is an amazing possibility for reimagining how jobs will be provisioned, how admissions will be done in colleges, how document verifications will be done, how visa processing will be done, and all kinds of interesting will be completely changed from today's world. And today the account aggregator ecosystem has kicked in. It's a large startup ecosystem as well. You can see on the left who are innovators. Thankfully, India is blessed with a very vibrant startup community. But again, so far, what we have done is what you call a trust layer. India stack was about trust layer, identity, digital signature, data, DigiLocker in terms of certificates and credentialing. By themselves, it doesn't do anything. It is only creating high trust, low cost. But what do you use it for is whether what you call transaction networks, transaction infrastructure. And we are creating healthcare and wellness transaction infrastructure, education infrastructure, and education skilling and jobs, livelihood infrastructure, urban governance, financial infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, including FASTag and so on, and of course, commerce infrastructure, which is ONDC, right? We are creating all this infrastructure that allows a massive unification, what UPI did to payment, a unification of that industry rather than fragmentation and low trust, high cost environment. You move it to low cost, high trust, unified environment that opens up opportunities, more opportunities for innovators, opportunities for SMEs, opportunities to actually create better targeted policies for policymakers. And of course, academicians I've seen academicians just, wanting to do research and so on. Many of them, even around the world, people are starting to study on India, by the way. So I hope some of you are studying. And this is an example of SEBI, where the SEBI's cost structures was get to the mutual fund. I'm talking about get a mutual fund account. It was 1,500 rupees. KYC cost alone. That means a Zerodha's equivalent or some sort of mutual fund distributor cannot sell it to a driver working in Uber, because unless the driver gives 300,000 rupees, 3 lakh rupees, I can't even recover my 1,500 because I only get 50%, 50 bips commission, 0.5% commission. So with my mutual fund commission, the cost of paperwork itself is more than commission. So nobody wanted to sell mutual funds to anybody other than 22 million people, 2.2 crores. And it was, plateaued. Our capital market people were plateaued. And today, with the transformation. Today, the cost is now literally sub 20 rupees. From 1,500 rupees became 15 rupees. So think about it. It's not an order of one, it's an order of two reduction of cost. Suddenly, it meant you only need, 1,000 rupees to save, 2,000 rupees to save, and it's still viable for a mutual fund distributor. And that's how Zerodha has publicly admitted, right? Saying that without India's stack and without policy support, we would have never managed to, sort of become SIP investment at scale, systematic investment. And then, of course, now we are opening up SME market completely, which is very, very fragmented transactions, or they are monopolized by a few platforms. And you have seen the platform monopoly is not unreal. They're actually real. And there are a lot of talk across Europe and US itself. There are a lot of, angst about platforms, sort of high margin platform games that they're playing, and slowly and steadily, people losing the choice of selling. There's no only other way to sell is to this platform, and as a seller, I am stuck because that's the only platform, and I have to give 30% or whatever I need to give, right? So this is why a lot of interoperability argument is made as an anti-competitive measure. And if you look at Kochi, last 2 years back, launched Kochi Open Mobility Network. I don't know how many of you are actually seen, but recently, Bangaloreans definitely heard Namayatri because that was actually launched in Bangalore in beta. And what is it doing? It's world's first permissionless peer-to-peer mobility network. That means between the taxi driver or auto driver and you, without any central platform. Like internet, your client, your server. The two things at the back front end, right? Very, very powerful. And it's an extremely new way of disrupting. While Web3 guys were talking about decentralization, they were actually not doing decentralization. They were only asset decentralization. They were not doing transaction decentralization, by the way. And now, you can see the Web3 sort of blowing up a little bit there, but it will self-correct, I think. But what we are trying to do is to create open network, like like your phone network or email network or internet. We are creating mobility network and commerce network, which is ONDC.
Dr. Pramod, sorry to interrupt you. Quick time check. We are at 10:40. So
okay, few more minutes. I'm just winding up and then opening up. That's why I'm really hurrying. By the way, UHI is another network, and I'm throwing these words to you. I'll share the link as well. You will have a lot of homework to go back and actually understand it. But the essence of this is to create a large UPI-like open interoperable network of providers on one side and consumers on the other side to directly connect them. Whether it's a gig network, whether it's taxi network, whether it's food network, whether it's commerce network, healthcare, wellness, it's the same pattern. And that's why we are able to actually build. And there is an open source effort called Beacon Protocol. You can actually go beaconprotocol.io, Beacon without the O, and it's completely a global open source interoperability spec. And these networks, ONDC, UHI, Namayatri, Kochi Mobility Network, it's all using the same protocol actually to create specialized networks, decentralized networks. So what India is doing pre-92, many of you know, government was doing everything and nobody wants to get back there. It would have been, bad time to go back to. And in the US, pretty much post-internet, post-2000, we outsourced everything to big tech. So from all government doing to all big tech doing, creating walled gardens. What India is doing is trying to stay in the middle path where you create a set of digital rails that are public good in nature, public utility in nature, on top of which you can create private innovation. So some of the interoperability, portability aspect is managed and choice architecture is created, and you create a lot more level playing field for innovation than a big tech running away with the whole country, right? That's something which is, especially in the time of war, we have seen today that, a payment network can be completely switched off. A kill switch was pulled off with payment network sitting in some other country. So Indians are also, many countries, including UK and so on, are starting to ask the question, how can we create our own sovereign underlying digital infrastructure, payment, maps, some of those common infrastructures that every country needs without outsourcing the whole thing to a private company. And we somehow serendipitously India brought policy, digital infra, and a vibrant marketplace together. And we are in a very good zone. Even if whatever pessimism you are in every day, we have to be. We are the only country who can be optimistic about the future because we have a young, aspirational India with a reasonable, vibrant democracy and a good set of policy, digital infra, and market players coming together. Of course, there are lacunas. Of course, there are many things that could go wrong. But we need to be able to drive this triangle very, very well towards putting people and SMEs at the center and driving large-scale formalization and innovation. Formalization of 500 million people, 600 million people. Otherwise, they are all roadside money lenders, roadside money savings, and roadside. That's not how the world should be. And or even blue collar workers. People go on truck and pick them up from the roadsides. The plumbers and or masons and so on. Inhumane way to. That's not. We should not leave them there. Technology is a great leveler, and technology can be, if used correctly, if designed correctly, with the right balance of policies and right balance of privacy and security, right balance of digital infrastructure as an approach, not a solution as an approach, infrastructure as an approach, we could look at a blooming solutioning ecosystem, well-balanced ecosystem that is giving choice and eventually formalize the market. And that's why, and all of you can actually contribute, whether you are a part of policymaker or part of open source work, digital public goods. Much of our work, everything is in open source on GitHub. So please do participate. Or solutioning, you might be a startup solutioning, or you might be a policymaker or a researcher, academic researcher. And I know at least 4 different work at Harvard and Fletcher School and all going on right now, studying India's effort. There's no reason why our own IIMs and all should not be studying. We should be studying aggressively and raising funds to study that also. So please have that momentum going for us to be able to get it right. We don't know. Hopefully we'll get it right at the end of the day. Thank you.
Wow. Wonderful. I'm sure our chat window is flooded with questions. Venkatesh and I are collating them, but that was really insightful, especially when you started speaking about access leads to habits and habits leads to outcome. I mean, that is so impactful. So we'll hand over the forum to Venkatesh so that he can invite people and make them panelists so that they can interact with you, Dr. Varma.
Sure.
Venkatesh, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. We have a question from Jessie Nair, and I would make Jessie Nair a panelist.
We'll urge all people who join us as panelists to switch on your camera so that we have a virtual face-to-face at least. Thank you.
Yeah. Jessie, can you please accept the promotion to panelist and speak?
Well, while she's preparing, maybe you can go to the next one.
Yeah, she's.
They can all come online one by one.
Yeah. Please unmute yourself and speak.
Good morning to Dr. Pramod and Venkatesh sir. I'm not able to switch on the video.
That's all right. Don't worry. It's okay.
So, my scholar is doing something on, I thought your presentation would also touch upon digital health as a question. So he's doing something on, rural women and how they access benefits. Is it possible at all for them to use some sort of a digital mechanism to access, benefits that are given to rural pregnant women?
Oh yeah, most of the. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue. Yes.
Could you throw a little bit of light on that? I mean, where?
Yeah. So again, there's so much we have done in the last 12 years. So much we are doing in the last 12 years. Hard to compress everything into 40 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
So that's why I couldn't address all that thing. But our ABDM, which is Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, Health Mission, provides a set of building blocks in terms of doctor registries, facility registries, portable healthcare records, and of course, UHI, Universal Health Interface for discovery and fulfillment of telemedicine, labs nearby, ambulance, instead of not knowing which is your local ambulance number, because every city has different numbers and so on. So ability to sort of unify that. Now, we also have largest insurance program in the world, right? PMJ, which is 400 million people are covered 5 lakhs a year per family. Quite large, and even states are supplementing additional benefits as well. Many of the states are adding their own health benefits on top of topping it up, the PMJ program. So there are pretty much all the rural women at that level would have access to PMJ. They should sign up to a PMJ. They will have 5 lakh per year, and PMJ is widely getting accepted across the country. In addition to, and PM, you can say get your Aadhaar account or ABDM. You can start see these ads in the CSC centers and so on. Wherever you have this, they'll enroll them. So you take them to a CSC center, they can actually enroll themselves into this program completely free. And very high chance they all have Aadhaar anyway, so they can actually enroll themselves into a government subsidy program. In addition to that, pregnant women before the pregnancy, during the pregnancy and post delivery, as Janani Sureksha Yojana continues to be part of JSY program, and that also is Aadhaar linked, and so it should be fairly straightforward. And if they have a bank account and Aadhaar link, it's pretty straightforward to sign up. And if they have Aadhaar, opening a bank account became easy. So that's how you should look at it. Make sure they have a bank account. Make sure everyone has a bank account. Make sure, preferably, they have at least a shared phone number, mobile number to get to, because they can get OTPs and messages and so on. And then sign them up for ABDM and sign them up for JSY. But if you are also creating digital solutions, look at ABDM's APIs, open APIs and stack to say, how can I leverage that to provide a better access, primary care or access to care and affordability of care at the rural tag. Okay, that is the solution layer. For directly to citizens, sign them up for PMJ and ABDM. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot for those inputs. Thank you.
We have the question from Vikas Prabhu, and I'm making Vikas a panelist. Jesse, you may get back as a participant.
While I can even start answering while doing Nivedita Krishnan ask what could be the strategy for players like Namayatri, and if you prefer to come online, we can wait for it. But
yes,
I could.
I am online, but I'm not able to start my video. It says
don't worry, that's okay. That's fine.
Not.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So can you hear me, Dr. Varma?
I can hear you well.
Yes.
What's your name?
My name is Vikas Prabhu, and the last comment that you made about IIM should be taking this particular projects and its research pretty aggressively. I should say we have already done that. I am a PhD student from IIMB. Awesome. And we have been looking at the UPI ecosystem. So when you said that it was an ecosystem driven kind of an implementation, ideally we would like to have kind of an extended chat with you, but here I will just ask two very important questions that are in my mind. Mm-hmm. When this ecosystem kind of came together, there were, I would assume, two important hurdles that had to be overcome. First one was the cost of upgrading from existing legacy systems, which had to be replaced with your new interoperable kind of protocol. How was that hurdle overcome? And secondly, there might have been some vested interests, like existing wallets that already had their own kind of closed networks. So how were they convinced to come on board into a very shared interoperable network? So how was that ecosystem put in place? Who were the players who actually drove this project? I was curious. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Vikas. And thanks for doing the research. By the way, you should, I'll send you another video as well of my talk recent, a few months ago. I was in Washington. And why is it important? Because we tend to catch up which is already publicly known, like UPI, right?
Right.
But there are upcoming ones like ONDC and Namayatri Kochi Mobility, which is never been ever done in the world, anything like that. So it's important that some of you also get to be the first writers, first authors of some of the paper rather than waiting for some foreigner to write and then you write after that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I also encourage you, but I'll send you a video separate. I'll send to Purabi, which you can share with all of you, separate video about the underlying what's called platforms to network. My talk on platforms to network. Okay, it's very important that with the network thinking, why is India going towards the network approach architecture? So to answer your first question, it was not a replacement story in UPI at all. UPI was very carefully constructed or architected as the ability to move money between two accounts. So we were not getting into the inside of the bank and saying you replace your system. You have a stored value system and account system, and you have a bunch of applications like internet portal, consumer app, lending, card issuance, all the stuff you do. But just put this adapter, UPI adapter on one side, and the other side also speaks the same language called UPI. Suddenly, the ability to move real-time money at a click of the end user consent, authorization, become live, right? That's what we did. So UPI was not a replacement strategy. UPI was an add-on strategy that immediately created a unified acceptance network, right? That's what happened. And of course, UPI's QR code was, again, we brilliantly leveraged the QR code popularity and ease and printability. The ability to QR code is a powerful kind of opportunities there, and that's why you see vegetable vendors on the right, roadside, all sticking QR code. They may not send money, but they definitely can receive money, right? So that's one of those interesting things. That. So second point, any disruption when we do, or anything that is seen as a disruption, incumbents resist. Okay, incumbents always resist, and I've not seen that pattern changing. Okay, frankly, other than when it comes to health and so on. Very interestingly, resistance is lower there. In the payment, resistance was very high, as you appropriately, and I don't want to name the companies, obvious who they are. The resistance was high because they were already getting into a dominant incumbent. When they become a dominant incumbent, their entire revenue structures, processes, habits are all set up towards maximizing that. Now you are asking a new way of, opening up, democratizing payments. They are starting to ask a lot of questions, like including card guys. Card guys were obviously card is another network card. Interestingly, card transactions went up, and our argument and people who thought UPI was a visa killer got it wrong. Frankly, we always said it is not a visa killer. Definitely, we wanted to make sure we are not subservient to a foreign product or anything in our country. RBI was always ahead of the curve to ensure that we have our own infrastructure, whether payment infrastructure or whatever, right? Always we've had it. And that anyway, UPI was, we had a sovereignty angle in it, but it is mostly an expand the market argument. We believe with 1 billion people, with 22 official languages and 100 plus very used languages, with so much of diversity, no single company can actually address the needs of that population. That means we need a unified, a network of solutioning that can work seamlessly between each other rather than further fragmenting. Oh, 100 million in this company, 10 million in the other company, 50 million in the other company, and nobody is interoperable. So what is use of further fragmenting? First of all, we only had 100 million people at best, okay? 100 million people in the digital English-speaking crowd who is using this, 80 million maybe. Okay. Health tech, even worse. Health tech is, we have less than 15 million people combined, all practice of the world. Out of 900 million adults, think about it. 15. EdTech with the biggest names sponsoring T20 cups. We have less than 20 million people in their network. Paid real users of their network. We have 350 million children in the schooling and the high school education, right? So we are expanding and formalizing the pie is the real essence of what we do. But while doing that, almost always we need to do it through a slightly disruptive manner. When the disruptive incumbents resist it, but they see the value. So in UPI, to answer your second part of the second question, after the initial adoption, when the PhonePe had nothing to lose, they played the game, UPI game, because Samir and Rahul were starting the company and they said, we'll bet on it, and they went after it. Axis Bank was a small bank. They said, we'll go all out. Yes Bank was a small bank. They said, we'll go all out. And suddenly there was a FOMO kicking in and an expansion kicking in, a national narrative kicking in. UPI being a powerful India's answer to real-time payments. And at that time, they start realizing not joining, starting to become an impediment for their own growth. But interestingly, when they joined, even they expanded the market. They did not shrink the market. Including card industry, did not shrink, they only grew. Because what we are doing is we are creating habit at scale. 300, 400, 500 million people are doing digital money transfer with Aadhaar, between Aadhaar and UPI. That's a powerful, young, aspirational India starting to get habituated and starting to demand that I need to have the solution. That means everybody is winning. There is no need to lose. But initially, they all resist. Of course, we see the same. Okay. I hope I answered that.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Pramod.
We have a question from Rohit. Rohit, I have promoted you as a panelist. Can you please come online and ask your question?
While we doing, I have quick answers from the chat. So TS Sharma says, mobile portability, can we imagine Aadhaar number is being the first one document, one identity? I don't believe, frankly, as Chief Architect of Aadhaar, I don't believe we should be limited to only one identity. Identity is very contextual and identity is very purposeful a lot of times. So having layered set of identities, for example, when you walk into IIM campus, should we use Aadhaar number every day to check in and check out and all that thing? No, I mean, it's an overkill. So I actually think it's an overuse of an infrastructure. So if we see Aadhaar as a foundational ID infrastructure, but they will be derived identities that will be there for many purposes, like PAN being a tax identity and so on. So that's how, I think that's the right thing to do, okay? So that it gives you choice, it gives you purpose, it gives you privacy, it gives you de-risking, systemic de-risking, because, one system come down, country can't stop and all that thing. Even if it's 30 minutes, if it's down, country can't stop. So it's actually good to de-risk with multiple purposes to an identity. But Aadhaar can act as a very foundational identity for lifelong identity, for first-time onboarding. So when I'm joining IIM or joining an employer, I could use Aadhaar, but after that, I use whatever card I want to. Okay. Wait, is he online? Yes. Okay, Nivedita.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, there's a flight in the background. My question to you was, with the Kerala Open Mobility and the Karnataka Namayatri. In Karnataka, I know that the recent auto drivers charging more than minimum was was a good catalyst.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you get adoptability? How do you how can we think of discoverability with these type of new innovations when there are already really big dominant players in the market? I'm definitely thinking of doing a case study on the Namayatri.
Please do.
Sorry?
Okay. Please do. We'll make sure that we get you all the necessary Kochi and other data as well. By the way, urban mobility is a worldwide waiting to be disrupted. Last few weeks ago, one of my friends, the Beacon Protocol, for example, one of the CEO of that foundation was in Milan, and he was going through Europe, talking about our Beacon Protocol work and decentralized networks. Right outside the metro stations, they have wall paintings, saying no Uber, power back to the people, and so on. This is not a Namayatri auto rickshaw problem. It is a worldwide phenomenon of an unsettled risk, angst that's actually coming out about this platform monopolies, okay? Because, by the way, 2 days back, somebody in San Francisco, one of the most leading VC venture capitalists, traveled from San Francisco airport to his house, called Palo Alto and all, big guys, and and taxi guy, he paid $39 to Uber, $39 to Uber, and he was, because he knew of India work, he's an Indian VC, he asked the driver, how much are you getting out of it? And driver showed you $17. 50% margin? That's, come on. No wonder drivers are actually going up in arms, or restaurants are going up in arms against Zomato, or any of these platforms for that matter, right? It's all everywhere, it's all over the world. And our platforms are not, they're not bad people, they're innovators, fantastic, we love it, Amazon and Zomato, we use it every day. But there is a limit beyond which the platform's monopoly becomes the real issue, societal issue. And that creates uprising. So it's a great place to study. The answer to your question is that so far it's been a beta, Namayatri, and Namayatri hardly any ads other than, I think, Karnataka Rajyotsava Day, there was some, but unions and drivers are talking proudly about it. And Kochi, that's what's happening. Drivers are saying, it's my app. And I get to, when I say 80 rupees, I get to keep 80 rupees. No cut, no middleman, right? It's amazing. But discovery as seamless as Uber. So I don't have to, it's not like we are going back in dark ages and going to road and saying hello, hello, and all. No. You can still sit in your app and get it, but except that it's my app, your app, and there might be a small utility pay or fee or other things you might have to pay for getting the app. App guys also have to survive. But other than that, there is no mobility aggregator in the middle. There is no aggregator platform in the middle. Okay, it's decentralized, and this is completely viral. By the way, Nivedita, completely viral. How the drivers are telling drivers, and in their WhatsApp chat, sending Kannada messages in Mysore, Tumkur, people are signing up. Completely, it's world's first permissionless peer-to-peer mobility network. It's amazing. Is it study? Is it worth studying?
Congratulations on building that.
Congratulations all of you as well. All of us are part of it. We are all doing little small things, but all of us collectively we make the transformation. Always, okay? Never one person.
Ravi, please go ahead with your question.
Good. Yeah, thank you, Venkatesh. Good morning, Dr. Varma. Firstly, much thankful for this session as well as the great work which you have done in making everybody's life, much more easier. The question I had was that today, to a large extent, when it comes to government to citizens, there's a lot of information access which is getting created. Do you think that there could be a situation where the citizens could also have some kind of clarity on the quality of service? Like typically, we face a lot of issues when it comes to local governments, like municipalities or, road taxes, licenses. So do you think there's a use case for us to look at some kind of standardization and democratization, which we are trying to do in the maybe a private company or an e-commerce kind of setup? Can we start bringing those kind of best practices into government to citizen?
Yeah. So I say again, we always sometimes philosophically and principally we get aligned. Everybody feels that we need to change, but the system is actually not ready for change, right? So sometimes you have to track the timing correctly. And physical infrastructure, so people ask you, India is absolutely, without doubt, leading the world in digital infrastructure, public digital infrastructure, right? Beyond internet itself, and telephone network. We have really built layers of beautiful payment, commerce, health, and so on. Now we are creating. What's happening to physical infrastructure, urban infrastructure, sanitation, roads? Why is it so different? We are in such a crazy world. I don't think I have an answer, but really there is some good effort going on under e-government foundation. If you're not been tracking them, they are doing an open source digital infrastructure called Digit. Digit is urban transformation. And they are creating unified citizen views, schemes, ability to do grievance handling and so on. but the change has to somewhat come from the leaders within themselves, or it has to be forced by the people. Only that's the reason the change will come. Some cities like Punjab and all that thing aggressively doing it. Andhra has done a good job, always, they've definitely done good job in terms of citizen interface, unifying, grievance handling, and so on. Bangalore, yeah, time will come when there will be either change will come from within, or people will, uprise hopefully to fix itself. The digital infrastructure exists. I think it's a real question of timing and intent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so
we had a question from Rohit, and he's not in the chat now. So would you like to take up the question from Rohit, Dr. Varma?
okay, it's in Q&A, right? Q&A.
So we can read it out for you.
I can read it out. As the needs for personal data increases due to the advent of AI era, many companies are collecting their users' data and using it to advance the services. How can you use blockchain-based personal data trading systems using decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials?
Okay, yeah. So a little bit loaded question, so I'll unbundle the question itself. One, our data protection. This is why we have been all asking for the privacy bill. It's absolutely pending, and the minister has promised to bring a much cleaner, better bill back. We had a draft one. The data protection bill is the legal structure, like GDPR, for us to be able to handle data protection, data empowerment, and consent, and any grievances related to data and so on. So that has to come. Without that legal support, much of the work we are doing would become only so much we can do. That's important, keep in mind. So always demand the government to bring it up, and we need to support the government to bring it up. Review when they put it out for public consultation. If you are looking at it, do review and so on. The second part of that is that, yeah, when digitization happens at scale, algorithmic possibilities emerge, which is both good and bad, right? In the sense that technology by itself is not harmful. The use of technology can be harmful, how you end up using it. The good part about algorithmic is machine readable, digitally signed, trustworthy data means now I can get affordable lending, affordable, because an underwriting algorithm or a verification algorithm is not human beings' costly, time delayed exercise. It is instant, near real time, and so on. So same as healthcare. A lot of people are working on AI driven early detection, not resolution. That you still have to go to experts and doctors. You shouldn't be believing an app and taking some medicine and all that thing. But early detection is key. So skin patches and all that thing, decolorization. People are starting to now look at AI as imaging technologies to give you early warnings, right? So I was same as wearables and so on. So when we do wearables, they actually give you warning that your heart rate seems to be there's a issue of rhythm, and you might want to go check it out. And these are important things to do. So algorithm data generates the possibility of access, affordable access. Very, very powerful. So if you imagine data to be leveraged accordingly and according to the law, you can do magic by doing, whether it's financial savings, trading example you talked about, or lending example you talked about, or education or healthcare and so on. You can now reach without cost of human being, cost of verification, cost of paperwork. None of that is required. You can do much larger scale access can be opened up. Very good. Also at the same time, negative part is that algorithms are always trained, especially AI is trained on data, and data could be biased. So if you don't look at the nuances, and if you don't have the expertise to understand that your algorithm could be quite wacko, okay, and you could be sending people down some rabbit hole because your algorithm is actually suggesting that they do something that algorithm got it wrong. So how do you get algorithms in a sandbox And how do you get algorithms to be socially tested, like observable, social testing, sort of scrutiny is a good thing. And this is why some other cases like healthcare regulators are saying, if we will treat a health bot no different from a health device that has to go through a healthcare clinical correct accuracy testing and so on. While Apple Watch and Fitbits of the world are trying to stay away from regulatory, eventually I think they'll get pulled into saying that if you're recommending stuff, health stuff, you have to go through accuracy. And the Stanford study shows that a lot of devices other than the top one or two are actually quite wrong. In the sense they would say heart rate or something and it's really not correct. And that study is public access. You can look at it. So algorithms could be bad and good, but there is an opportunity in front of us by using data. And under the law, it can be used. The last part of the question, can we use blockchain? Sure, you can, but blockchain is a technology waiting to look for solution, continue to do that way. And blockchain maturity is still not there, frankly, the transaction maturity. For example, we can't do 6.8 billion UPI transactions every month on blockchain. It's just going to crash and burn. Its cost is enormous. Power cost and running cost is enormous. The delays are TPS, transaction per second, is low, still low. So, you know what? If the technology matures and if the technology can be used for moving assets, digital assets like verifiable identity, verifiable assets, verifiable credentials, not so bad. Could be used. Blockchain could be used. And one of our open source work does verifiable credentials on sunbird.org. If you go to sunbird.org, you will see a lot of extra foundation work, which is doing verifiable credentials building blocks. That has an open source team working on a blockchain integration where the credentials can go on the blockchain. So it's quite possible, but not for transactional purposes though. You might have to still do it outside the blockchain. Okay, I hope I answered. I know a bunch of heavy questions here.
Yeah. Vikas had another question apparently. Vikas, can you ask that question?
I didn't want to, extend the session by asking more questions, but I just wanted to put in a word to Varma that, it would be interesting for us to know the finer dynamics of how the UPI ecosystem kind of emerged and evolved. It would be, kind of very rich for my research. So if you would be willing to have an offline.
Not to be told. But no, it's one of those things, right? I know, I'll try to get you whatever I think is gettable. But you can also interview people who have been part of that and, not so bad, collect some data. But there are many small things that we do. Look for the right leadership, look for the right regulatory opportunity, look for the right, even demo we used as an opportunity to say, anyway, it's happened, right? Whether we like it or not, it happened. Could we really use UPI to help people who, instead of standing in line for ATM or bank at that time, cash wasn't available. So I think some of them might seem, quite cunningly done, but it's actually the intent of this has always been pure. And none of us take any, a lot of us, at least personally me, don't take stakes in private companies and so on. So we're all doing open source good work for right intent. But there are some nuances about how we conversations with specific companies, conversations with specific banks to push them or prod them and getting them might be still confidential, and some of them may not be available. Yeah, but it's worth it. Like Aadhaar, for example, at least 3-4 books were written on Aadhaar through interviews. So sort of 10 years later, we know the nuances of Aadhaar much in the public sector, public domain. I suppose you can do something with the UPI as well. I'll connect you with NPCI team. I'll connect you with some of the volunteers who be part of it. Some of the early adopters in the banks. There might be some people individually they might be willing to say. And as long as it's not putting somebody down or creating some nonsense issues, gossip issue, hopefully they're all good learning.
Definitely. Yeah. We totally understand, appreciate, and are sensitive to those things. So I already have your email ID. Can I reach out to you offline?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Varma.
Okay. I think we are conscious of time.
Yes.
All of you. Let's keep going.
I think
either of you want to close it out?
Yes, I guess we'll do that. Before that, I think the fact that we were not able to, pause at any point to check time, I think that itself is a good indicator. And we're excited because, and we've also shared with the audience if there are any further questions that people would like to know more and connect with you, we'll send them to you via Google Sheet, and then they can, of course, access. And the deck and a certain video reference that you had mentioned from platforms to network. We'll
I'll
share.
I'll share those links. Yeah.
Yes. Venkatesh, would you like to do the honors and thank everyone, and especially Dr. Pramodji?
Of course, of course. So Pramodji, first of all, it was a great session and it was one of its kind. And we hope you enjoyed it too.
Absolutely.
And big thanks to you, Prabhi, and the entire Aadhaar Foundation team and all the participants. In fact, we have had all the participants who did not proceed to the next event even after it was 11 o'clock. So it was scheduled between 10 and 11, and we still have all the people staying back. So that itself says how interesting the session was, and we have a lot of follow-up action. And thank you all very much, and look forward to seeing you all in the next sessions.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. And thank you, Pramodji. It was a pleasure to have met you. We've recorded the session also for those of us who want to see it again.
You can put it out. People would have missed it. I think few professors had reached out and said they have class conflicts. So
yes.
In fact, as the session was going on, we had Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan was asking, would it be recorded? Yes.
Yeah, will please share. It's okay. Yeah.
Great.
So take care. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. See you in the next masterclass session. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great. I think